At Sunday dinner, my mother set down her wine glass with the kind of deliberate precision that meant she was about to say something she'd been rehearsing. 23 family members around the table. My brother Eric at the head, talking about his promotion. His wife next to him, glowing with secondhand pride. My sister Amanda showing off engagement ring photos on her phone. And there I was, in the corner seat by the window, holding a fork full of my mother's pot roast that I suddenly didn't want to eat anymore. "David," my mother said, looking directly at me with that disappointed expression I'd seen my entire life. "You're not half the man your brother is. You know that, don't you?" The table went quiet. Not shocked quiet. Agreement quiet. Like she'd finally said what everyone was thinking. My father nodded. My uncle smiled into his napkin. Amanda looked at me with pity. Eric didn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable. Just kept cutting his meat like my mother hadn't just eviscerated me in front of the entire family. I set my fork down carefully, pushed my chair back. The scrape of wood on hardwood was loud in the silence. "You're absolutely right, Mom," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before an explosion. "I'm not half the man Eric is, which is why Eric should start paying your mortgage. Since I'm clearly not man enough to keep doing it." I stood up, looked at my father's face, which had gone from smug to pale in about 3 seconds. "Mortgage," he said. His voice cracked on the word. "What mortgage?" I smiled. Not happy, just bitter. "The mortgage I've been paying for the last 6 years. $2,100 a month. 73 payments. That's $153,300. For those of you keeping track." I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. "Eric's the better man. Let him handle it going forward." I walked out, didn't look back, didn't wait for explanations or apologies or the chaos I could hear erupting behind me. Just left, got in my car, drove away from the house I'd been paying for while they compared me to my brother. 3 hours later, my grandfather showed up at my apartment with a briefcase full of documents that explained 36 years of preferential treatment. And none of it was what I thought. I should have seen it coming. The comment, my mother had been building to it for weeks, maybe months, maybe my entire life. But let me back up. Because understanding what happened that Sunday requires understanding what had been happening every Sunday for 36 years. Every moment of comparison. Every reminder that I wasn't quite enough. Every time Eric was held up as the standard I'd never meet. The mornings started like they always did. My alarm at 6:30. Coffee at 7. Email until 8. I'm David Morrison, and at 36 years old, I'd built a life that looked successful from the outside. Director of operations at a logistics company. Good salary. Nice apartment in Seattle. The kind of stability my parents always said they wanted for me. But it was never enough. Because I wasn't Eric. Eric, who'd become a doctor like our father wanted. Eric, who'd married his college sweetheart at 27. Eric, who had 2 kids and a golden retriever and a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence. Literal white picket fence. Eric, who was everything our parents had dreamed of when they imagined what their children would become. And then there was me, David, who'd majored in business instead of pre-med, who was still single at 36, who lived in an apartment instead of a house, who worked in logistics instead of saving lives, who was, according to my mother's calculation at dinner, not half the man my brother was. The comparison had been constant since we were kids. Why can't you get grades like Eric? Why don't you have friends like Eric? Eric never talks back like this. Eric was 18 months older than me. 18 months that might as well have been 18 years for how much it mattered. He was the first, the trial run, the child who'd done everything right. And I was the second, the do-over, the one who was supposed to learn from his example. I'd spent my entire childhood in his shadow, not competing with him. You can't compete with perfection. Just existing alongside him. Being constantly reminded that he was the standard and I was the disappointment. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. Nice house, good neighborhood. 2 parents who were both successful. My father was a cardiologist. My mother was a nurse who'd stopped working when Eric was born. We had everything we needed: good schools, family vacations, college funds, the American dream packaged and delivered. Except I never felt like I was part of the package. I felt like the bonus item nobody asked for. My earliest memory is from when I was 4. We were at some family gathering. I don't remember whose, but I remember my aunt asking my mother if she'd planned to have 2 kids. My mother laughed. "Oh no," she said. "Eric was planned. David was a surprise. A happy surprise," she added, seeing my aunt's face. "But definitely not planned." I was standing right there, 4 years old enough to understand that I wasn't supposed to exist, that I was an accident. A happy one, sure, but still a mistake. That memory stuck with me, colored everything that came after. Every time I struggled in school while Eric excelled. Every time I got in trouble while Eric stayed perfect. Every time my mother sighed and said, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" I heard that conversation. Planned versus surprise. Wanted versus accidental. Eric versus David. My father was harder to read. He wasn't openly disappointed, just absent. Present in body but checked out emotionally. He'd show up to Eric's events, school plays, soccer games, science fairs, sat in the front row, took photos, cheered loudly. With me, he'd come when my mother made him. Sit in the back. Leave early if he got a call from the hospital. I learned not to expect him. Learned to scan the audience at my events and not be disappointed when his seat was empty. Learned that his time was valuable and I wasn't valuable enough to claim it. My mother was different. She was present, involved, just never satisfied. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Wasn't what Eric would have done. Wasn't what she'd expected. I brought home a B+. Eric got A's. I made the JV team. Eric was varsity. I got into a good college. Eric got into a better one. Every achievement was measured against my brothers and found wanting. Not bad, just less than. Always less than. Eric, to his credit, never seemed to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He was too busy being perfect to worry about how it affected me. We weren't close as kids. Weren't enemies either. Just existed in separate orbits. He had his friends, his activities, his perfect life. I had mine. Less perfect, less praised, less everything, but mine. When I was 16, I overheard my parents talking in their bedroom. I come home early from a friend's house. They didn't know I was there. My mother was crying. "I just don't understand him," she said. "He's so different from Eric. So much harder. Sometimes I look at him and I don't even recognize where he came from." My father murmured something I couldn't hear. "I know," my mother said. "I know I shouldn't compare. But it's hard not to when Eric makes everything look so easy. David makes everything a struggle. Even things that shouldn't be." I stood in the hallway listening to my mother cry because I was difficult. Because I wasn't like Eric. Because she looked at me and didn't recognize where I came from. I went to my room. Didn't mention what I'd heard. Didn't ask what she meant. Just filed it away with all the other evidence that I was the wrong kind of son. I excelled in the things that didn't matter to them. I was good at problem solving, at logistics, at seeing systems and understanding how to make them more efficient. I got internships at companies they'd never heard of, built skills in areas they didn't value. When I told them I was majoring in business and operations management, my father actually laughed. "What are you going to do with that?" he asked. "Manage a warehouse?" Close. I ended up in logistics, supply chain management, making sure products got from point A to point B efficiently. It was good work, important work, just not sexy work. Not the kind of work you bragged about at dinner parties. Not like being a doctor. Eric went to medical school, did his residency in cardiology, followed in our father's footsteps so precisely you could see the path he'd walked. Our father was thrilled, prouder than I'd ever seen him. "Dr. Eric Morrison," he'd say, trying it out, "has a nice ring to it." I graduated with my business degree the same year Eric graduated from med school. At the joint celebration dinner, My father spent 40 minutes talking about Eric's accomplishments. When someone finally asked about me, he said, "Oh, David's doing something with shipping. We're very proud." Something with shipping. That was my degree condensed. My 4 years of work. My career path. Something with shipping. I got a job at a mid-sized logistics company in Seattle. Started in operations. Moved up to management. Was making good money by 28. 6 figures by 30. It should have been impressive. Should have been something my parents celebrated. But it wasn't medicine. Wasn't what Eric was doing. So it didn't count. At family dinners, they'd ask about my job the way you'd ask about a hobby. Still working in Seattle? Still doing the logistics thing? Like it was a phase I'd grow out of. Like eventually I'd realize I'd made a mistake and find a real career. Meanwhile, Eric's career was treated like a soap opera everyone was invested in. Every patient he saved. Every procedure he mastered. Every award he won. It was all documented. Celebrated. Held up as the standard of success. And I was just there. The supporting character in the Eric Morrison story. Present but not important. Acknowledged but not valued. I stayed single longer than my family thought appropriate. Not because I couldn't find anyone. I dated. Had relationships. Some lasted months. One lasted almost 2 years. But they always ended the same way. The woman would meet my family. Would see how they treated Eric versus how they treated me. Would see the comparison. The preferential treatment. The casual dismissal. And they'd start to wonder. If my own family didn't value me, why should they? One girlfriend actually asked me that. How can I respect you when your own parents don't? She left a month later. I stopped bringing women home after that. Stopped introducing people to my family. Kept that part of my life separate. Because mixing them always ended badly. Always ended with me being measured against Eric and found wanting. And eventually the women found me wanting too. Eric got married when he was 27. Big wedding. 300 guests. Open bar. The works. I was his best man because that's what brothers do. I gave a speech about how great he was. How lucky his bride was. How he'd always been the person everyone looked up to. Every word true. Every word painful. Because I wasn't just celebrating my brother's wedding. I was participating in another public declaration that he was better than me. Better partner. Better son. Better man. My parents cried during his vows. My mother couldn't stop talking about how perfect everything was. How this was exactly what she dreamed of. I stood there in my tuxedo and smiled and clapped and pretended I was happy instead of hollow. Eric had kids. 2 of them. Boy and a girl. The perfect family. My parents became the kind of grandparents who showed strangers photos. Who talked about nothing else. Who structured their entire lives around Eric's family. Sunday dinners moved from our parents' house to Eric's. Because it was easier for them. Because of the kids. Because Eric's life was the center and everyone else orbited around it. I was 32 when the financial requests started. Not from Eric. From my parents. David, we're having some cash flow issues. Could you help us out? My father had retired from his practice. Bad investments had eaten into their retirement fund. They needed help with their mortgage. Just temporarily. Just until they sorted things out. I wrote a check for $5,000. Didn't think much of it. They were my parents. You help your parents. A month later, they asked again. Another $5,000. Then it became monthly. $2,000. $3,000. Whatever they needed to cover the mortgage and utilities and the lifestyle they'd been living. I didn't mind at first. I was making good money. Wasn't spending much. Living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Driving a used car. Saving aggressively because that's what you do when you grow up hearing about financial responsibility. I could afford to help. But they never told Eric. Never asked him to contribute. When I suggested it once, my mother got defensive. Eric has a family to support. Kids to raise. He can't afford to help right now. I was single. Had no dependents. Therefore, all my money was available for their use. That was the logic. I didn't argue. Just kept writing checks. Kept watching my savings account drain. Kept telling myself this was temporary, that they'd pay me back once they figured things out. The temporary arrangement lasted 6 years. 73 monthly payments. Some months it was just the mortgage. Other months it was the mortgage plus car payments, plus property taxes, plus emergency expenses that always seemed to come up. Medical bills, home repairs, things that needed immediate attention and immediate money. I tracked it all, not because I was planning to ask for repayment, but because I'm in operations. I track things. It's what I do. 6 years. $153,300, plus another $30,000 in various emergencies over the same period. $183,000 total. Money that came out of my salary, out of my savings, out of the life I could have been building. And they never told anyone, especially not Eric. At Sunday dinners, my father would complain about money, about how expensive everything was, about how retirement wasn't what they'd imagined. And Eric would nod sympathetically, offer generic advice about budgeting, never once offering to help, because he didn't know they needed help, didn't know I was covering everything, didn't know that the reason they could afford their lifestyle was because I was funding it. The comparisons got worse as I got older, maybe because I still wasn't married, wasn't giving them grandchildren, wasn't checking the boxes Eric had checked. David, when are you going to settle down? Don't you want a family? Eric had 2 kids by your age. The implication was always the same. I was behind. I was failing. I was disappointing them by not following the script. I tried explaining that I was focused on my career, that I was comfortable with my life, that maybe I didn't want the same things Eric wanted. They didn't want to hear it, didn't want to accept that different paths were equally valid. There was Eric's path, and there was everything else. Everything else was wrong. I stopped trying to defend my choices, stopped explaining that I was happy, that I liked my job and my apartment and my life, stopped trying to get them to see me as successful in my own right, because they weren't going to. Not while Eric existed as the standard. Not while I fell short of that standard in visible, measurable ways. I started dreading Sunday dinners. They were mandatory. Missing them required an excuse. A good excuse. Work emergency. Illness. Acts of God. Anything less, and my mother would call repeatedly until I showed up. So I showed up. Every Sunday. Sat in the corner seat by the window. The seat nobody else wanted. Ate food I didn't taste, participated in conversations I wasn't really part of, smiled when Eric's kids did something cute, nodded when Eric talked about his work, pretended I was fine, pretended this was normal, pretended that families talked about one child 90% of the time and the other child got the remaining 10% as an afterthought. My therapist, yes, I had a therapist, everyone should have a therapist, said I was enabling. You're allowing them to treat you this way. You're paying for the privilege of being ignored. That's not healthy, David. You need to set boundaries. I knew she was right, but boundaries meant confrontation. And confrontation meant admitting out loud that I'd been funding their life while they treated me like I didn't matter. Admitting that made it real, made it impossible to pretend this was just how families worked. So I didn't set boundaries, just kept showing up, kept paying, kept hoping that eventually they'd notice. That eventually someone would say, David's been carrying us. We should acknowledge that. Nobody did. Last Sunday started normal. I drove to Eric's house. The house he'd bought 5 years ago. The 4-bedroom colonial with the white picket fence and the perfectly manicured lawn. The house that screamed success. Screamed that Eric had made it. That he was living the dream. I parked on the street. Walked up the path. Let myself in because that's what family does. The house smelled like my mother's pot roast. The Sunday dinner staple. Everyone was already there. My parents, Eric's wife Sarah and their kids, my sister Amanda and her new fiancé, various aunts and uncles and cousins. 23 people gathered around Eric's extended dining table. The table he'd bought specifically to accommodate Sunday dinners. The symbol of his role as patriarch despite being only 37. I took my seat, the corner spot by the window. My seat Had been for 5 years. Nobody questioned it. Nobody offered me a different spot. The seating arrangement was established. Eric at the head, Sarah at his right, my parents on either side. Then the rest of us in descending order of importance. I was near the bottom, above the teenagers but below everyone else. Conversation flowed around me. Eric talking about a difficult surgery he'd performed. Sarah talking about redecorating plans. Amanda showing everyone her engagement ring for the 10th time. My mother praising everything. My father nodding approval. I ate pot roast and mashed potatoes and listened to my family celebrate Eric's life. Then my father asked the question, "David, are you seeing anyone?" Not interested, just going through the motions of including me. I shook my head. Not currently. Work's been busy. Eric laughed. Not mean, just dismissive. Work is always busy, little brother. You have to make time for the important things. Like I did. Little brother. I was 36 years old and he still called me little brother like I was 12. My mother chimed in. Eric's right. You're not getting any younger. If you want a family, you need to start prioritizing it. I stabbed a potato with more force than necessary. I'm prioritizing my career right now. I'm up for a VP position. That's my focus. My father made a sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a scoff. VP of what? Shipping? There was laughter around the table. Not malicious. Just amused. Like my job was a punchline. Like the work I did was inherently funny. I set my fork down. Supply chain operations, actually. It's a Fortune 500 company. The promotion would mean... My mother interrupted. That's nice, dear. But it's not the same as what Eric does. He's saving lives. You're just moving boxes around. The table went quiet. Everyone staring at their plates. Embarrassed for me. Because my mother had just reduced my career to moving boxes. Had just told me in front of everyone that my work didn't matter. I should have left then. Should have stood up and walked out. But I didn't. I just sat there. Took it. The way I'd been taking it for 36 years. Amanda broke the silence. Showing her ring again. Talking about wedding plans. The conversation moved on. I went back to eating. To being invisible. To existing on the periphery of my own family. Then dessert came. My mother's famous apple pie. She served Eric first. Then his kids. Then my father. Then Sarah. Working her way down the hierarchy. She got to me last. Set the plate down without looking at me. I took a bite. Tasted like ashes. Like every other Sunday dinner for the past 6 years. Eric was talking about vacation plans. Disney World with the kids. My mother was excited. That sounds wonderful. You're such a good father, Eric. The kids are so lucky to have you. My father nodded. Best investment we ever made. Your medical school tuition. Look at the man you've become. I set down my fork. Looked at my father. Best investment. I repeated. He didn't hear me. Too focused on Eric. I said it louder. Best investment? He looked over. Confused. What? I smiled. Not happy. Not friendly. Just sharp. I said, best investment. Is that what you call it? Investing in Eric. My mother frowned. David, what are you talking about? I gestured at Eric. At his perfect house and perfect family and perfect life. You said his medical school tuition was your best investment. I'm just wondering. What was I? The table went quiet again. But different this time. Uncomfortable. My mother's face tightened. David, this isn't the time. I cut her off. No, I'm curious. Eric's education was an investment. What was mine? A waste? A mistake? A happy accident that turned out not so happy? My father set down his wine glass. You're being dramatic. We're proud of both of you. You know that. I laughed. Actually laughed. Really? Because I can't remember the last time you said anything about my career other than making jokes about shipping. Can't remember the last Sunday dinner where my accomplishments were discussed. Can't remember the last time anyone asked about my life except as a courtesy before changing the subject back to Eric. Eric looked uncomfortable. David, come on. Don't do this. Not here. I turned to him, my perfect older brother, who'd never had to fight for attention, who'd been praised just for existing. Don't do what? Point out that our entire family revolves around you? That I could not show up for a month and nobody would notice? My mother stood up. That's not true and you know it. We love you. We're proud of you. But you make it so hard. You're so defensive. So sensitive. We can't say anything without you taking it the wrong way. I stood up too. You just told me I move boxes for a living. In front of 23 people. And I'm sensitive for being hurt by that. She waved her hand. Dismissive. I didn't mean it like that. You're twisting my words. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just done pretending this is normal. Done pretending that you don't compare me to Eric constantly. Done pretending that I'm valued here when I'm clearly not. My father stood now, voice rising. You're overreacting. We compare you to Eric because we want you to have what he has. Success, family, happiness. We want you to be like him because he's happy. That's when my mother said it. Set down her wine glass with that deliberate precision. Looked at me with that disappointed expression. And said the words she'd probably been thinking for 36 years. David, you're not half the man your brother is. You know that, don't you? The table went dead silent. Not uncomfortable silent. Agreement silent. Everyone looking at me. Some with pity. Some with relief that someone finally said it. Eric didn't defend me. Just looked away. Sarah looked at her plate. Amanda bit her lip. My father nodded. Like my mother had finally voiced a universal truth. I set my fork down carefully. Pushed my chair back. That scrape of wood on hardwood was loud in the silence. You're absolutely right, Mom, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. I'm not half the man Eric is, which is why Eric should start paying your mortgage. Since I'm clearly not man enough to keep doing it. I stood up, looked at my father's face, watched the color drain from it. Mortgage, he said, voice cracking. What mortgage? I smiled, bitter, sharp. The mortgage I've been paying for the last 6 years. $2,100 a month. 73 payments. That's $153,300. For those of you keeping track. Plus another 30 grand in various emergencies. Grand total, $183,000. I looked around the table, at the 23 faces that had gone from agreement to shock in about 10 seconds. But you're right. I'm not half the man Eric is, so Eric can take over the payments. He's a doctor, makes great money, has a family to support, but I'm sure he can figure it out. He's good at everything, right? My mother's hand was over her mouth. David, we didn't. You never said. I held up my hand. I never said because you never asked. You just took. Assumed I'd keep giving. Assumed that because I don't have a family, my money is available for your use. Well, I'm done. Eric's the better man. Let him fund your retirement. My father found his voice. We were going to pay you back. We just needed time to. I cut him off. 6 years. That's how much time you've had. How much more do you need? I grabbed my jacket. Eric's the standard. Eric's the success. Eric's the man I should be like. So let Eric carry you for a while. See how he likes it. I walked toward the door. My mother called after me. David, please. You don't understand. We can explain. I turned back. Explain what? That you've been using me? That you've been taking my money while telling me I'm not good enough? That you've been comparing me to Eric while I'm the one actually supporting you? I looked at Eric. At my brother who'd sat there silently while our mother eviscerated me. Did you know? I asked. Did you know I was paying for them? Eric shook his head. He looked shocked. Actually shocked. No. I had no idea. David, I swear. If I'd known. I held up my hand. You'd have what? Offered to help? Thanked me? Stopped comparing me to yourself for 5 seconds. I shook my head. Doesn't matter. You're the golden child. You get to stay golden. I'm just done being the ATM that funds the worship. I left. Walked out of Eric's perfect house. Got in my car. Drove away with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Not from fear, from rage. From 36 years of suppressed anger finally breaking through. I'd spent my entire life being compared to my brother, being told I wasn't enough, and I'd funded that treatment, paid for the privilege of being dismissed, written checks so they could live comfortably while they told me I was disappointing. And I was done, so done. I got home to my apartment, the one-bedroom place in Seattle that I could actually afford because I'd been bleeding money to my parents for 6 years. Poured myself a drink, stood at the window looking out at the city lights. My phone started exploding with texts from family members who'd been at dinner. Why didn't you tell us? We had no idea. You should have said something. I ignored them all. Didn't want their shock. Didn't want their apologies. Didn't want anything from people who'd sat there and agreed when my mother said I wasn't half the man my brother was. Around 10, someone knocked on my door. I checked the peephole expecting my mother. Or Eric. Someone coming to explain or apologize or make excuses. It was my grandfather, my father's father, standing in the hallway with a briefcase, looking old and sad and like he was carrying weight he couldn't hold anymore. I opened the door. "Grandpa," I said, "what are you doing here?" He didn't answer, just walked past me into the apartment, set the briefcase on my dining table, looked at me with eyes that had seen too much and were about to show me more. "I've been waiting 36 years to have this conversation," he said. "Your grandmother made me promise I wouldn't tell you until you were ready, until you needed to know. Tonight you need to know." He opened the briefcase, pulled out documents that looked decades old. Birth certificates, hospital records, letters in my grandmother's handwriting. "Your brother Eric," he said, "is your parents' biological son. You, David, are not." The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. "What?" My grandfather pulled out a birth certificate. David Morrison. Born March 15, 1989. Mother, Jennifer Morrison. Not Carol. My mother's name was Carol. "Who's Jennifer?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. My grandfather sat down heavily. "Jennifer was your father's sister. My daughter. She died when you were 6 months old. Car accident. She was 23. Unmarried. Your father was listed as unknown on your birth certificate." I took the certificate with hands that were shaking, stared at a name I'd never heard. Jennifer Morrison. My mother. My real mother, who died when I was 6 months old. Why didn't anyone tell me? My grandfather's eyes filled with tears. "Because Jennifer asked us not to. She was scared, young, ashamed of being a single mother. She made your father and Carol promise to raise you as their own, to never tell you that you weren't biologically theirs, to give you the same love they gave Eric, the same opportunities, the same everything." He pulled out a letter, yellowed with age, my name written on the envelope in handwriting I didn't recognize. "She wrote this before she died. It was supposed to be given to you on your 18th birthday, along with the truth, but your father refused. Said it would be too confusing, too painful. Better to let you think you were their son. Better to maintain the illusion." I couldn't open the letter. Not yet. Not while I was still trying to process that my entire life was a lie. "They promised," my grandfather continued, "promised Jennifer they'd love you equally, treat you the same, make sure you never felt less than. But they didn't. From the moment you were born, Carol saw you as her sister-in-law's kid, not her son, an obligation she'd taken on, promise she regretted making. And your father, my son, he loved Jennifer, but he couldn't love you without being reminded he'd lost her. So he pulled away, focused on Eric, his real son, the one that didn't come with grief attached." I sat down. Had to. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "So that's why," I said. Not a question. A realization. "That's why they've always compared me to Eric. Always preferred him. Always treated me like I didn't belong. Because I don't. I'm not actually their son." My grandfather reached across the table, took my hand. "You are their son. They raised you, fed you, educated you. that makes you their son. But yes, that's why Carol especially has always held you at a distance. Why you've never felt like you measured up. Because in her mind, you weren't hers. You were Jennifer's, the sister-in-law she'd never been close to, the responsibility she'd taken on out of obligation. I pulled my hand away. And the money, the $183,000 I've given them. Did they think that's what I owed them? For raising someone else's kid? My grandfather shook his head. I don't think they thought about it that consciously. But yes, on some level, they probably felt entitled to your support. Felt like you owed them for taking you in. For not putting you up for adoption like they could have. For raising you when they didn't have to. I felt sick. Literally nauseous. I've been paying them back for the privilege of being unwanted. For being raised by people who resented me. For 36 years of being compared to a son they actually chose. While I was just the kid they got stuck with. My grandfather opened the briefcase again. Pulled out more documents. There's more, he said. Jennifer had a life insurance policy. $50,000. It was supposed to go to you. Into a trust. For college or whatever you needed. Your father was the trustee. He was supposed to manage it until you turned 18. Then give it to you. I already knew where this was going. Let me guess. He used it for something else. My grandfather nodded grimly. Used it to pay for Eric's medical school. Justified it by saying you'd gotten scholarships for your undergraduate. Didn't need the money. Eric had massive student loans. Needed help. It was a family decision. I laughed. Harsh. Bitter. A family decision. To take my money and give it to their real son. To the one who mattered. While I got scholarships and loans and worked 3 jobs to pay for school. And they let me. Knowing there was $50,000 that was supposed to be mine. Knowing Jennifer left it specifically for me. I looked at my grandfather. At this old man who'd kept these secrets for 36 years. Why didn't you stop them? Why didn't you tell me? He looked down. Ashamed. I tried. Confronted your father when I found out about the insurance money. He said it was his decision as trustee. That he was doing what was best for the family. That you'd be fine. I threatened to tell you everything. He said if I did, he'd cut off contact. I'd never see you or Eric again. I was a coward. I chose access over truth. I'm sorry. I stood up. Started pacing. Trying to process everything. I wasn't who I thought I was. Wasn't my parents' son. Wasn't Eric's full brother. Was the unwanted nephew they'd been stuck with. The obligation they'd resented for 36 years. The kid who'd paid them back for raising him by funding their retirement while they told him he wasn't good enough. Read the letter, my grandfather said softly. Jennifer wanted you to know her. To understand why she made the choices she did. You deserve that much. I picked up the envelope. Looked at my name in Jennifer Morrison's handwriting. The woman who'd given birth to me. Who died when I was 6 months old. Who I'd never known existed until tonight. Opened it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Dear David, it started. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I got to watch you grow up. Got to be your mom in all the ways that matter. But if not, if something happened to me before you got old enough to remember, I want you to know some things. First, you were wanted. So wanted. People are going to tell you I was young. Scared. That I didn't plan you. That's partly true. I was 22. In my last year of college. Not ready to be a mom. But the moment I knew you existed, I wanted you. Completely. You weren't a mistake. You were a surprise that became the best thing in my life. The letter continued. Your father. I can't tell you much about him. We were together for a few months. He wasn't ready for a family. Left when I told him I was pregnant. I could have tracked him down. Could have forced him to be involved. But I didn't want you growing up with a father who resented you. Better to have no father than a reluctant one. So I kept you to myself. My boy. My surprise. My joy. I named you David because it means beloved. Because that's what you are. What you'll always be. Beloved. My brother, your uncle, I guess, but you'll think of him as your father. And his wife Carol agreed to take you if something happened to me. They promised they'd love you like their own. That they'd give you everything they gave Eric. that you'd never feel less than. I believe them. Carol has a son already. Eric. He's 18 months older than you. You'll grow up as brothers. That makes me happy. Knowing you won't be alone. That you'll have family who loves you. I'm writing this just in case. Just in case I don't make it to see you grow up. But I'm planning to be there for everything. Your first steps. Your first day of school. Your graduation. Your wedding. All of it. I'm planning to watch you become whoever you're meant to become. To support you. To love you unconditionally. To make sure you never doubt that you're wanted. That you matter. That you're enough exactly as you are. I had to stop reading. Wipe my eyes. This woman. This mother I'd never known. Had wanted me. Had called me beloved. Had planned a future where she'd love me unconditionally. And she died. And I'd been given to people who'd promised to love me like their own but never did. Who'd broken every promise she'd thought they'd keep. Keep reading, my grandfather said. I went back to the letter. I'm setting up a life insurance policy. $50,000. It will go into a trust for you. Managed by my brother until you're 18. Then it's yours. For college. For starting your life. For whatever you need. I'm making him promise, making him swear that he'll give it to you, that he won't use it for anything else, that it's for you and only you. I'm also making him promise to tell you the truth when you're old enough. 18 seems right. Old enough to understand. Old enough to process. I want you to know where you came from, who I was, how much I loved you, even if I'm not there to tell you myself. So if you're reading this at 18, if my brother kept his promise, know this, you are loved. You are wanted. You are enough. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel less than. You came from love. You are love. And whatever you choose to do with your life, whoever you choose to become, I'm proud of you. So proud. Happy 18th birthday, my David. My beloved. Make it count. With all my love, Mom. I sat there holding the letter, reading it again, feeling like my mother, Jennifer, not Carol, was sitting next to me, telling me everything I'd needed to hear for 36 years. That I was wanted. That I was loved. That I was enough. Everything Carol had never said. Everything my father had never shown. Everything I'd spent my entire life looking for in the wrong places. From the wrong people. She loved you so much, my grandfather said, his voice thick with emotion. Used to bring you to visit us every week. You were her whole world. And then that drunk driver ran the red light. And she was gone. And we gave you to your uncle thinking he'd keep his promise. Thinking he'd love you the way Jennifer wanted. But he didn't. And I've watched you grow up feeling unwanted in a family that should have cherished you. I should have told you sooner. Should have fought harder. I'm sorry. I looked at him. This old man who'd lost his daughter 36 years ago. Who'd been watching me be rejected by the family he'd trusted me with. Who'd kept these documents safe. Waiting for the right moment to tell me the truth. Don't apologize, I said. You're the one who finally told me. That's more than anyone else did. I spent the next hour reading through the other documents. Hospital records from my birth. Photos of Jennifer holding me as a baby. Her college transcripts. Evidence of a life cut short. A mother I'd never know, but who'd loved me completely in the 6 months we had together. My grandfather told me stories about Jennifer's sense of humor, her kindness, her determination to be a good mother despite being young and scared. She would have been amazing, he said. Would have loved you the way Carol never could. Would have made sure you never doubted your worth. I'm sorry you didn't get that. Sorry you got the substitute instead of the real thing. I thought about Carol. About the woman who'd raised me while resenting me. Who'd compared me to Eric constantly. Who'd taken my money while telling me I wasn't half the man my brother was. My brother. Except Eric wasn't my brother. He was my cousin. We shared grandparents but not parents. Everything I'd thought about my family was wrong. Everything I'd believed about who I was a lie. And I'd been paying for the privilege of being lied to. Paying for them to keep up the illusion. Paying for Sunday dinners where I was the outsider. The one who didn't really belong. Because I didn't. Never had. They just never told me. My grandfather left around midnight, told me to call if I needed anything, left me his phone number even though I already had it, left the briefcase full of documents. These are yours now, he said. Your mother's belongings, your history. Take whatever time you need to process this. But David, don't let this destroy you. You're more than their failure, more than Carol's resentment. You're Jennifer's son, and she'd be so proud of the man you've become. He hugged me, long and tight, then left. I sat at my dining table surrounded by evidence of a life I'd never known. A mother who'd loved me, a father who'd abandoned me, an uncle who'd taken me in but never truly wanted me, an aunt who'd promised to love me but never could, and a brother who wasn't really my brother, who'd been the standard I'd never meet because I was fundamentally different. I wasn't supposed to be there, wasn't supposed to be part of their family, was the obligation they'd resented from day one, and I'd made it worse by existing, by needing things, by not being Eric, by being a constant reminder that they'd made a promise they didn't want to keep. I opened my laptop, started looking at the documents my grandfather had given me. There was enough here to file a lawsuit, misappropriation of trust funds, theft, fraud, everything I needed to make them accountable, to get back the $50,000 plus interest, to force them to face consequences for breaking Jennifer's trust, for breaking me. Monday morning, I called my lawyer. I need to discuss a stolen inheritance, I said. $50,000 from a life insurance policy. I have documentation, proof that my father was trustee and used the money for someone else. I want to file suit. My lawyer asked questions, took notes, said he'd need to review everything, that there might be complications since technically I'd been a minor when the money was supposed to be distributed, but that we probably had a case. I'll get back to you by end of week, he said. I thanked him, hung up, sat in my office at work and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. I was David Morrison, except I wasn't. I was David, Jennifer's son, Carol and Robert's nephew, Eric's cousin, the obligation, the burden, the kid they'd gotten stuck with who'd spent 36 years trying to earn love that was never going to come. Because you can't earn what people have already decided not to give. I'd been chasing approval from people who'd resented me from birth. Had been comparing myself to a standard I'd never meet because I wasn't supposed to be compared. I was supposed to be loved separately, differently, the way Jennifer had loved me, completely, but she died, and I'd gotten the substitute, the obligation, the regret. Tuesday, Carol showed up at my office, got past security by saying she was my mother, marched into my office like she had the right. David, we need to talk about this, she said. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just demands. I looked at her, this woman who'd raised me while wishing she hadn't, who'd compared me to Eric constantly, who'd told me I wasn't half the man he was, who'd taken my money and my mother's insurance money and given it to her actual son. I don't think we have anything to talk about, I said. She sat down anyway. You can't sue us. You can't. Do you know what that will do to this family? The scandal? The embarrassment? Please, we can work this out privately. I leaned back in my chair. Privately? Like you privately used my inheritance for Eric's medical school? Like you privately let me pay your mortgage for 6 years while telling me I was disappointing? She looked away, uncomfortable. We were going to tell you about Jennifer when the time was right, when you were old enough to understand. I laughed. I'm 36 years old. When exactly was the right time? 40? 50? Never. She twisted her hands together. We thought it would be easier if you just believed you were ours. If you didn't know about Jennifer, about how you came to us. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting me? I repeated. By letting me grow up feeling like I didn't belong? By comparing me to Eric constantly? By making me think there was something wrong with me because I couldn't live up to your expectations? She stood up, started pacing. You're twisting this. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, educated you. We didn't have to do any of that. We could have put you up for adoption, but we didn't. We kept our promise to Jennifer. We raised you, and this is how you thank us? By suing us? I stood up too. You kept part of your promise. You raised me, but you didn't love me. You didn't treat me equally. You didn't give me what you gave Eric. You gave him love and praise and support. You gave me tolerance, obligation, resentment, and you used my inheritance to pay for his education while I worked 3 jobs to pay for mine. So yeah, I'm suing you, because promises matter, and you broke the important ones. She was crying now. Please, Robert had a heart attack last month. Small one, but the stress of this could kill him. Do you want that? Do you want to be responsible for your father's death? I walked to the door, opened it. He's not my father. He's my uncle. And if he's worried about stress, he should have thought of that before he spent 36 years rejecting his sister's son. You both should have thought about consequences before you broke every promise you made to a dying woman. She left, crying, probably went straight to Robert, probably told him I was being cruel, that I was destroying the family, that I'd changed. Except I hadn't changed. I just stopped pretending that what they'd done was acceptable. Stopped accepting crumbs and calling it love. Stopped paying for the privilege of being tolerated. Wednesday, Eric showed up. Didn't call first. Just appeared at my office. We need to talk, he said. I looked at my cousin. At the man I'd grown up calling my brother. Who'd had everything I'd wanted. Love. Acceptance. Belonging. Not because he'd earned it, but because he'd been born to the right parents. About what? I asked. He sat down. Looked uncomfortable. About mom and dad. About the money. About everything. David, I didn't know any of it. I swear. I didn't know you were paying their mortgage. I didn't know about Jennifer. I didn't know about the insurance money. None of it. I believed him. Eric had always been oblivious. Too focused on his own life to notice what was happening in mine. Okay, I said. You didn't know. So what? He leaned forward. So don't sue them. Please. They're old. They made mistakes. But destroying them over this, it won't fix anything. I shook my head. This isn't about fixing. It's about accountability. They stole from me. They broke promises to Jennifer. They spent 36 years making me feel like I didn't belong. And they need to face consequences. Eric ran his hands through his hair. They loved you. In their own way. They just... Mom especially. She struggled. After Jennifer died, she'd promised to take you. Felt obligated. But she was grieving. Jennifer had been Robert's sister. Someone Carol had never been close to. Taking you felt like inheriting someone else's responsibility. She tried. She really did. But she couldn't separate you from the grief. From the obligation. And the more she tried, the more she resented that she had to try. That loving you wasn't automatic like it was with me. I stared at him. You're defending her. You're actually defending her for resenting me. For treating me like I was less than. He held up his hands. I'm not defending her. I'm explaining. There's a difference. What she did was wrong. How they both treated you was wrong. But they're not monsters. They're flawed people who made bad choices. And suing them, making this public, it won't change what happened. It'll just hurt everyone. I stood up. Everyone being you. This will embarrass you. The doctor with the perfect family. Your mom will cry at Sunday dinners. Your dad's reputation will be affected. People will know what they did. And you can't stand that. Eric stood too. That's not fair. I'm trying to keep the family together. I walked to the door. We're not family, Eric. We're cousins. We share grandparents. But we're not brothers. We never were. And I'm done pretending otherwise. He left. I sat at my desk and breathed. The lawsuit was moving forward. My lawyer had reviewed the documents. Said we had a strong case. Misappropriation of trust funds. Breach of fiduciary duty. The insurance money plus interest would be around $78,000 now. We'd file by end of week. Thursday, my father called. Robert. Not my father. My uncle. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. David, please. We need to talk. This lawsuit is going to destroy everything. Your mother, Carol. She's devastated. Can't eat. Can't sleep. And I've been to the hospital twice this month. My heart. The doctor says it's stress. Please, drop this. For the sake of the family. For Jennifer's memory. She wouldn't want this. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the whole thing. Jennifer's memory. They were using my dead mother to manipulate me. The woman they'd promised to honor by raising her son. The woman whose insurance money they'd stolen. The woman whose wishes they'd ignored for 36 years. They didn't get to use her name now. Didn't get to pretend this was about honoring her when they'd spent decades dishonoring her trust. Friday, the lawsuit was filed. Public record. Detailed allegations. Misappropriation of Jennifer Morrison's life insurance funds. Breach of fiduciary duty by Robert Morrison as trustee. Request for repayment plus interest. Total amount, $78,600. The news spread through the family like wildfire. Text messages, calls, voicemails. Everyone had an opinion. Some supported me, said Robert and Carol had crossed a line. Others said I was destroying the family, that lawsuits between family members were unforgivable, that I was cruel, vindictive, that I'd changed. I muted all the group chats, blocked numbers, focused on work, on being present for the job that actually valued me. The colleagues who didn't compare me to anyone, who judged me on my own merits, who saw me as valuable, not as a disappointment. My therapist said I was grieving. You're mourning the family you thought you had, the parents you thought loved you, the brother you thought you had. None of it was real, and accepting that is a form of grief. She was right. I was grieving, but I was also building, creating something new, a life that wasn't defined by their expectations, that wasn't funded by their approval, that existed because I'd built it despite them, not because of them. The lawsuit took 9 months to settle. Out of court, Robert and Carol agreed to pay the full amount, $78,600. They had to refinance their house to afford it. The house I'd been paying the mortgage on for 6 years. They also agreed to a written apology, acknowledging that they'd misappropriated the insurance funds, that they'd failed to treat me equally to Eric as promised, that they'd broken Jennifer's trust. The apology was clinical, legal, exactly as much as their lawyer said they had to give. Nothing more. No genuine remorse. Just compliance. I deposited the check, added it to the $183,000 they'd taken from me over the years, donated the entire amount to a foundation for kids in foster care, kids who'd lost their parents, who were being raised by people who'd taken them in but didn't love them, who needed to know they mattered despite what their families told them. Named it the Jennifer Morrison Foundation, after my mother, the woman who'd loved me completely for 6 months, who'd tried to protect me even after she was gone, whose trust had been betrayed by the people she'd trusted most. I'm 37 now, 1 year since the dinner that changed everything. I don't talk to Robert or Carol, haven't spoken to them since the settlement. They're alive, living their lives, probably telling people some version where I'm the villain, the ungrateful nephew who sued his own family. I don't care anymore. Don't need their approval. Don't need their acknowledgement. Don't need anything from people who needed me to be less than so Eric could be more. I see my grandfather regularly, every Thursday for dinner. He tells me stories about Jennifer, shows me photos I've never seen, gives me pieces of a mother I never knew. She'd be so proud of you, he tells me. So proud of the man you've become, the way you stood up for yourself, the way you didn't let them define you. That's her strength, her courage. You're more her son than you ever were their son. Eric and I don't talk. We're not enemies, just strangers, connected by genetics but separated by everything else. He sent an email after the settlement. I'm sorry for how they treated you. I wish I'd seen it sooner. Wish I'd stood up for you. But I didn't. And I understand if you can't forgive that. I didn't respond, not because I'm holding a grudge, but because there's nothing to say. We spent 36 years as brothers who weren't really brothers, as family who weren't really family. You can't rebuild something that was never actually built. Amanda reaches out occasionally, sends texts, asks how I'm doing, invites me to things I don't attend. She's trying. I give her credit for that. But I'm not ready. Not ready to sit at family gatherings with people who watched me be rejected for 36 years and said nothing. Who agreed when Carol said I wasn't half the man Eric was. Who took sides when I finally stood up for myself. Maybe someday, but not now. I'm seeing someone, Maya. She's a teacher, works with kids who've aged out of foster care, helps them transition to independence. We met at a fundraiser for the Jennifer Morrison Foundation. She asked about the name. I told her the truth. All of it. About Jennifer. About Carol and Robert. About growing up feeling like I didn't belong. About finding out I was right. She didn't look at me with pity. Looked at me with understanding. Found family is stronger than blood family, she said. Because it's chosen. Because people stay by choice, not obligation. That's real. We've been together 8 months. Slow. Intentional. Building trust instead of rushing. She's met my grandfather. Heard his stories about Jennifer. Asked thoughtful questions about identity and belonging and what it means to be wanted. She hasn't met Robert or Carol. I told her about the lawsuit, the settlement, the years of paying for their lives while they told me I was disappointing. She said, "You deserved better. You deserved parents who saw you, who valued you, who loved you the way Jennifer loved you. I'm sorry you didn't get that." Last week, I visited Jennifer's grave for the first time. My grandfather took me. Small cemetery on the edge of Portland. Jennifer Morrison, beloved daughter and mother, gone too soon. I brought flowers, sat on the grass. "Hi, Mom," I said. Felt strange calling her that. But right. "I'm sorry I didn't know about you sooner. Sorry you didn't get to watch me grow up. Sorry I had to grow up with people who wished I hadn't." The wind picked up, moved through the trees, almost like an answer. "I read your letter," I continued. "The one you wrote for my 18th birthday. I got it 18 years late, but I got it when I needed it. And it changed everything." I touched the cold granite. "You said I was beloved, that I was enough, that I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I wish I'd known that sooner. Wish someone had told me that while I was growing up. Would have saved me a lot of pain. A lot of money." I smiled. Sad but real. I sued them, Robert and Carol. Got back the insurance money they took. Donated it all to a foundation in your name. For kids like me. Kids being raised by people who took them in but don't love them. Kids who need to know they're wanted. That they matter. I think you'd approve. I sat there for an hour, talking to Jennifer, telling her about my life. About Maya. About the grandfather who'd protected her documents. About finally understanding why I'd never felt like I belonged. "Thank you," I whispered, "for wanting me, for loving me completely in the time we had, for leaving me a letter that told me the truth. I'm sorry I didn't get to know you, but I'm glad I'm your son. Glad I came from you instead of them. That matters. More than you'll ever know." I left the cemetery feeling lighter. Not fixed. Not healed. But lighter. Like I'd put down a weight I'd been carrying my entire life. The weight of trying to belong where I wasn't wanted. Of trying to earn love from people who'd decided before I was born that I wasn't worth giving it to. I was David Morrison, Jennifer's son, Robert and Carol's obligation, Eric's cousin, the kid who'd grown up feeling like he didn't fit because he literally didn't, because he'd been placed in a family that never made room for him. But I'd made my own room, built my own life, found my own people, Maya and my grandfather and colleagues who valued me and the kids at the Jennifer Morrison Foundation who needed to know they weren't alone. That was family. Real family. Not the people who shared my DNA but rejected me anyway. The people who chose me, who stayed, who saw me and decided I was worth their time. That's what Jennifer had wanted for me. Had tried to give me by entrusting me to Robert and Carol. She'd thought they'd choose me, love me, make me feel like I belonged. They didn't, but she had. For 6 months, she'd chosen me completely, had called me beloved, had wanted me with everything she had. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I've left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family isn't always who you're born to. It's who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it's like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.